Hi and welcome back to Miss White Hat. This is episode 2 and we're going to talk today about how the financial system got hijacked by the White Hats in 2017. So the financial system is built on central banks, and on top of that you have the central bank of the central banks, and that is the Bank of International Settlements. And that was founded in the 30s. And that system is tied together with the telecom infrastructure of Ericsson and also the power of ABB. And it runs on internet. And this controls by the same entity called the Wallenbergs. So we're going to talk a lot about the Wallenbergs because you will find out that they are involved in everything. And they have been that since the 1600s. But in modern time, around 200 years. And the Chinese, they say that these Swedes have interfered in their country for 200 years. So they were really predicting what would happen. And they were first with the phones, and then they didn't want to sell phones anymore, but they had the telecom infrastructure. And the leverage that this family has is enormous. They can surveil and listen to everything. And Trump and the Patriots, they knew this. And in 2015, Trump called them out and said that there is a company called Ericsson and they are selling telecom equipment to regimes that use that in order to surveil and control their own people. Trump also said that Ericsson is a matter of national security, and we will find out here why. All money that we have today in bank accounts, they are digital. Without the telecom infrastructure, the internet and the power, no one of us will be able to access our funds, because our funds are, our currency is digital confetti, right? So the Patriots knew that they had to take control over this entity. So they did. And not so secretly as we can imagine. But I will show you what happened in December 6th of 2019. The Justice Department in the US sentenced Ericsson to pay over $1 billion to resolve this FCPA case, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FCPA. So this is a really corrupt company. Ericsson entered into a deferred prosecution agreement with the department in connection with a criminal information filed today in Southern District of New York, charging the company with the conspiracies to violate the anti-bribery, books and records, and internal controls provisions of the FCPA. So this is not it. If we read here, almost at the bottom, it says right here, as part of the deferred prosecution agreement, Ericsson has agreed to continue to cooperate with the department in any ongoing investigations and prosecutions relating to the conduct, including of individuals, to enhance its compliance program and to retain an independent compliance monitor for 3 years. So they have a person from the DOJ at their company at all times, and they have had that for 3 years. And this was prolonged when these 3 years run out This was prolonged until June 2024. And what I think will happen is that Ericsson will actually be divided into, now it's 184 countries that they control the telecom infrastructure. And they also control the whole internet. They control all stock markets, stock exchanges. So Nasdaq is not only a stock exchange, it is also the platform for over 150 stock exchanges. So all of them globally runs on their system. So imagine the leverage that they have with both the telecom infrastructure, the internet, and also all stock exchanges. So all the payment infrastructure runs on their system. The US couldn't stand this. You can't have a private entity that are corrupt. We can see here that they are corrupt. So this is not up for debate. They are corrupt. They also run the 911 service in 25 countries. And what does this mean? This means that if you send a text, they can change that text in real time before it reaches the receiver. They can also deny or block your call to the 911 service. And that is the reason why this agreement is so important. And this changes everything, because the whole financial system runs on this telecom infrastructure. Without that, we have nothing. We can't go back to a fully analog system. Then we would need no bank accounts at all, right? Then we would only have cash. But go back to only cash, I don't think that we want that. And it's not realistic. And I try real hard to be realistic and talk about what I see and how I think that it will impact our lives. So we're going to go through this. We know now that Ericsson has a person from the DOJ working and surveilling everything they do. And what this also means is that the deep state that could surveil everything, I mean, this is the headquarters, this is the brain of the deep state. And their leverage that they could listen to everything. I mean, if you have a great idea that could in any way impact their business, they would either crush you, steal your patents, or buy you off and just, they can buy your product, your patent, and then they just bury it because they don't want to release it to the public, because that would, of course, jeopardize their business and their profits and their control and their whole ecosystem. And we also know that they have so much information over politicians, famous people, Hollywood, rich people, and so on. And all that leverage that they had, that they could use to blackmail people, that was also taken over by the DOJ. Now they have it all. They have everything. We know that it was the Vatican, Washington, D.C., and City of London that ruled the world through their judicial system, and you know that they had their own police and military and so on. And when Trump went around in 2017 in this submission tour, he took over the system. But also, very importantly, they had to take over this system. So now we have law of war manual. That's the judicial system that we have now. And also, we know that in August 15 in 2022, Space Force took over all military satellite communications. And we have heard from Dr. John Halper Hayes, that's currently on the DoD task force, that they answer directly to Space Force. And that can only be true if we have a continuity of government. So now we know that Ericsson is under Space Force, and the DOJ, the Department of Defense, and all the branches are, or the government in the US are answering directly to Space Force and the military. Now we know that Space Force are running the financial system, and we know that Space Force are running all internet and telecommunications globally. And this was really important because if we have a Bank of International Settlements, that is the central bank of the central banks, it runs on a telecom infrastructure that was held by a really corrupt criminal syndicate and this Wallenberg family. And we also know that we have a new financial system running parallel. It's the quantum financial system. And I mean, this with the quantum, that is common sense, right? Because if you are making a new financial system, you want, of course, to have it on the safest, the latest technology that you have developed. And if we go to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. This is an official website of the United States government. So it's OCC.GOV. And we just search here in the search engine for quantum financial system. And this one is really interesting. This is a guarantee letter. And this email was forwarded to us from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency in Washington, D.C., where Michael Chamberlain has been working with the acting controller of currency to ensure the immediate disbursements of your funds. We will see this is really important here. It says, in preparation for the global currency reset and arrival of the quantum financial system, currently running parallel, any international financial activity regulated by their respective agencies must strictly comply with no tolerance to all protocol and regulations stipulated in the International Quantum Initiative Act. So this is proof that it's currently running parallel and it's in accordance with the Quantum Initiative Act. And you also, of course, have a web page in the US, quantum.gov. So we know that quantum is coming, it's running parallel, and this letter is actually from the 6th of June 2020. So this is right there now on the official website of the US government. So this is the proof that we have been looking for so long. I have a website called cornelianfilter.com. We have an article here that I wrote about BIS, Bank of International Settlements. And this is really interesting. We know that Sweden has the oldest central bank in the world. And that central bank is from 1668. Yeah, so we have a long history. So all central banks originate from this central bank. And did you know that the Supreme Court in the US was actually established at the same time as the Swedish one? And we had a colony in the US, New Sweden. It was in Pennsylvania, Delaware. It was, if you search on New Sweden, you will find it. And we know that the Biden family, the Biden had actually an office in the Swedish embassy in Washington, D.C. So in that embassy, it's actually Swedish law. So that could be the reason. And also, if we go back and talk about Ericsson again, I can tell you that in order just to be visible on the internet, all big companies has to pay license fee to Ericsson. So you have Microsoft, Google, Twitter, Facebook, and so on. All of them have to pay license fee to be able to be on the internet and use their system. And also we have the servers of, for example, Amazon we have in Sweden, and they store all the data of all Americans. So why do they have the data of all Americans in Sweden? I think it's because of the FRA law. So we have a different judicial system here, and that is really attractive to companies. And especially since we have Ericsson and they pay license fee and they are listed on NASDAQ, and they can be under a different jurisdiction, and that's why they have chosen Sweden. Or maybe they don't have a choice at all. Maybe it's the Wallenberg that decides. We will see that. So this goes back a long time. Wallenberg also had their own arbitration court. It says that the SEC has always been independent. We were founded in 1917 as an independent entity within the Stockholm Chamber of Commerce and have worked without commercial or political interest ever since. This forms a key part of our history, but is also important as we look to the future. And what I did was that I found this document, and we just search here for Wallenberg. We can find this document here from 1932. We can see that this is on page 18. It says right here that the Bank for International Settlements appointed as an arbitration committee Marcus Wallenberg as the chairman and McKittrick and Franz Urbig of this committee. So this arbitration court was run by the chairman Marcus Wallenberg. So they were involved in the creation of the Bank of International Settlements. And I can tell you, I don't think that all this information was here just not so long time ago, but they have released it now, and you can see that Wallenberg is on all of them. So here we can see a picture from the White House, the 6th of March 2018. And Trump, he said in the press conference that Sweden is a small country, but very, very sharp. I can tell you they are sharp, he said. And here we can see the Wallenberg, both of them. And there is one more brother running the company now. And they are the sixth generation. And this guy, Pascal Soriot, he's with AstraZeneca. And they were really outed during the pandemic. But I think we should talk a little bit more about Oskar Stenström, number 8. He was also at the Bilderberg meeting. And there was some citizen journalist interviewing Magdalena Andersson, our prime minister, by that time. And she was together with him. And we didn't even know his name. He's kind of in the shadows all the time. But he works for the foreign minister now. And he also was in Chile. You know, in Chile, there was a scandal about stolen children, the adopted stolen children. And he was sent there immediately in order to, I don't know, talk them out of it or something. But he was there, and actually now his wife is the ambassador to Chile. And he is working now for the Wallenberg foundations and the Wallenberg companies. So, but he's just on leave from the foreign minister of, the Swedish foreign minister. And he will be back. This was just 5 months or 6 months, something like that. I think it was from the 1st of September until the 28th of February. And we don't know what he is doing there. It says that, he got this top job. But top job, and he is still employed by the Swedish government. And we believe that the Swedish government now is a continuity of government, and that we are under siege by the US military, and I will show you why later. But we believe that the reason why Oskar Stenström now works with the Wallenberg is in order to divide all of their companies, sell them off, divide them, maybe sell them, or just put them out of business. But we think that that is his job from as a representative from the continuity of government. We are under martial law and under the law of war manual, and we have a continuity of government, and he is sent by them. And since he got there to the Wallenberg, we can see that there's a lot of changes. The companies has been sold different with the shares and the voting, and many changes since he arrived. So that's why we believe that. So this is really interesting. And the last thing I will talk about is another company called Telia. And Telia is really interesting. It's also a telecom communications company. And this was from September 21 in 2017. And it's also bribery resolution. And they had to pay more than 965 million for corrupt payments in Uzbekistan. And this was a setup where they drained the regimes together with dictators. And they did that in several countries. And by that time, they got sentenced by the DOJ. The Swedish government actually owned 40% of this company. And I mean, you can't have a government that co-owns companies that conduct corrupt behavior all over the world. That's not possible. So we believe that this was the reason why the US military took control over Sweden. Because Sweden was so intertwined, the Swedish government was so intertwined with this company interest of Wallenberg and also the monarchy, because the monarchy is immune. And you know that the Wallenberg was actually in charge over both Sweden's central bank, Svenska Riksbanken. They were in charge of that, and they were also in charge of all foreign affairs. So the Wallenberg is not only the shadow government of Sweden, it's actually the shadow government of the world. And what they also have is these arbitration courts that function as parallel judicial systems. It says that the ICC arbitration rules are used all around the world to resolve disputes administered by the ICC International Court of Arbitration, the world premier arbitral institution. The rules assure parties of a neutral framework for the resolution of cross-border disputes. And this is really interesting. Look at this. Although called a court in name, we do not make formal judgment on dispute matters. Instead, we administer arbitrations by exercising judicial supervision of arbitrations proceedings. So it's not a court, they just call themselves a court. And you know that we have been under this maritime law, and all of this is recommendations. We are not under any laws. This is just policies created by companies, and they have just fooled us about everything all along. And this crime family is a really, really important key to all of that. And also we know that they are in Davos, and they are at the Bilderberg meetings. And if we look at if we just look at participants of the Bilderberg on Wikipedia, it says Wallenberg, 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 everywhere. And Jacob Wallenberg, he was actually in the Bilderberg meeting 17 times. 17 again. So he is at the Bilderberg, and I will also play a short clip about the Davos meeting and what one of the Wallenbergs think about that. And this is really interesting with all the links and connections from Davos to the Wallenbergs and how they were also behind that in funding that. So it was not Klaus Schwab. He's a puppet. He doesn't decide anything. He has control over nothing. And
Jacob Wallenberg, in what ways are you personally engaged with the World Economic Forum?
Well, I've been going to Davos for some 15, 17 years. I've enjoyed it tremendously. I'm a member of the IBC, the International Business Council. I've been a member of different industrial forums and so on. But maybe to me, the important thing is not to go to Davos in order to conduct business per se. Because to me, Davos is not only business and conducting business. To me, it's as much about developing yourself and coming out of these 4 or 5 days in Davos, hopefully at a slightly higher level with some reflections in your mind. That's what I like about Davos.
So just to sum it up, we know that the Justice Department took control of Ericsson, and Ericsson was the system on which the financial system is running. The Bank of International Settlements, the SWIFT, and all central banks. And all private banks, of course, because they also have bank accounts at the central banks. And we will discuss more about the different roles that the central banks play and the private banks. Actually, the money that you and I use, we the people, we use the money created by the private banks, not the central banks. So we know that we have a quantum financial system running parallel since 2020, at least in June 2020 it was already running parallel. And we know that both Sweden and the Wallenberg and the governments all over the world are under the law of war manual. We have martial law globally, and the White Hats and the Patriots and the Space Force has taken control over the financial system, over the internet, over telecom, and over the power. And of course the stock markets, because the stock exchanges was also on their system and their platform. But thank you so much for sharing and supporting my work. Take care now and see you next time.